You've heard the story. Humans came from Africa. But have you ever stopped to think about how that story began? It's not just about bones and fossils. It's about the first steps of a species that would change the world. Imagine being in the earliest moments of our species, walking on a landscape that would one day be called Africa. The air was different, the earth was wild, and every step was a leap into the unknown. The story isn't just about where we came from. It's about how we came to be. It's a journey through time, shaped by survival, adaptation, and the quiet resilience of our ancestors. What we call the out-of-Africa theory is more than a scientific hypothesis. It's a narrative of migration, of exploration, and of the enduring human spirit. It's a story that begins in the dust of the ancient world and echoes through time. In this video, we're not just looking back. We're trying to understand how a single origin became the foundation of every human culture, every language, every story that has ever been told. So what exactly are we talking about? The out-of-Africa theory isn't just a hypothesis. It's a narrative about where we all began, a story that starts with a single continent and stretches across the globe. It's not about one race or one people, but about the shared human experience, our common roots, our journey out of the continent that gave us life, and how that journey shaped everything we are today. It's not just about movement. It's about adaptation, survival, and the gradual transformation of a species from hunter-gatherers into the global community we know today. The out-of-Africa theory is more than a scientific claim. It's a reflection of our shared past, a reminder that no matter where we are in the world, we all come from the same place. It's a story that connects us across time and space, a bridge between the past and the present, and a foundation for understanding who we are and where we're going. You might not think about your roots, but your genome holds the story of every human who came before you. The out-of-Africa theory isn't just about where we came from. It's about who we are and how we got here. Every single one of us carries a map of ancient migrations, shaped by time, survival, and adaptation. These stories are not just for scientists. They're for you, your family, and your future. Understanding where we came from helps us understand where we're going. It shapes the way we see ourselves, our neighbors, and the world. It's not just about ancestry. It's about belonging. The out-of-Africa theory reminds us that we're all connected, even in a world that often feels divided. So, yes, it might seem like a distant academic topic, but in truth, it's deeply personal. It's the foundation of what it means to be human. The first humans walked the savannas of East Africa over 300,000 years ago, their lives shaped by the rhythms of the land and the seasons. They hunted, gathered, and learned to adapt in ways that would define the course of human evolution. From these roots, the migration began, not just of people, but of ideas, tools, and resilience. They moved across continents, carrying with them the seeds of what would become the human story. The journey wasn't always easy. There were setbacks, losses, and moments of doubt. But through it all, they persisted, driven by an unspoken purpose that would shape the future of our species. By the time they reached the edges of the known world, they were no longer the same people they had been. Their journey had transformed them into thinkers, builders, and storytellers of a shared human legacy. This is how we came to be. By walking, by learning, by enduring. The story of humanity is one of movement, transformation, and the relentless pursuit of meaning. So, imagine this. A long time ago, way before you were born, people lived in Africa. They moved around, hunted, and made tools. That's where it all started. One day, they decided to go further, to find more food and water. They walked, and eventually left Africa, heading toward new places. So, the out-of-Africa theory is just a way to explain how all humans, no matter where they live, share the same roots. It's like one big family tree, starting in Africa. Even though we look different now, we all come from the same place. That's why we're all connected, even if we don't always realize it. To understand how the out of Africa theory came to be, we must first look at the evidence that led scientists to ask the question in the first place. It all began with the discovery of ancient human fossils in Africa, remnants of a past that hinted at a deeper story. These fossils, found in places like Ethiopia and Kenya, were unlike anything seen elsewhere. They were older, more varied, and suggested a long, complex history of human evolution rooted in a single continent. Scientists began to piece together a timeline, using tools like radiometric dating to establish the age of these remains. The results painted a picture of a species that had evolved in Africa over hundreds of thousands of years. But there was more than just bones to consider. Genetic evidence from modern humans also started to align with this hypothesis, offering a new kind of clue to the story of our origins. Together, these findings formed the foundation of the out of Africa theory. They set the stage for a journey that would challenge old assumptions and reshape our understanding of where we come from. The next step is to look at the genetic evidence. Scientists analyze DNA from living humans and compare it to ancient remains to trace lineage and migration patterns. By studying mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosomal markers, researchers can determine how different populations are related through maternal or paternal lines. The genetic data also reveals how humans spread out from Africa in waves, carrying their genes with them across continents and oceans. This genetic evidence is like a living record, linking us all back to our shared origins and showing the deep connections between all human populations. It's a powerful reminder that, despite our differences, we are all connected by the same ancient lineage and the same human story. The clever twist lies in the genetic evidence that suggests all modern humans share a common ancestor. This ancestor lived in Africa, and from there, the human lineage began to spread. This isn't just about migration, it's about a shared genetic memory. The genetic markers we carry today are like a fingerprint, tracing our lineage back to a single origin. This theory doesn't just explain where we came from. It also helps us understand the diversity we see today. All that variation is the result of a single origin point. The twist is that this origin story isn't just about biology. It's also about culture, language, and the way we think. All of these traits trace back to that one point in time. The out of Africa theory is more than a scientific model. It's a reminder of our shared past and the journey that brought us here, shaping who we are today. The genome is a kind of time machine, carrying with it the echoes of 1,000,000 years of human evolution. Every base pair is a whisper of our ancestors, a molecular fingerprint tracing our lineage back to the first footprints on the African soil. Mitochondrial DNA, inherited only from our mothers, acts like a genetic compass. It allows scientists to trace the matrilineal line of all humans to a single African woman, often called mitochondrial Eve. Y chromosome studies, inherited through the father's line, mirror this story. They reveal a deep, singular origin for all modern males, reinforcing the idea that all humanity shares a common ancestry. These genetic markers are not just data points, they are the remnants of a shared past, a biological record of migration, adaptation, and survival. They speak to the very core of what it means to be human. The science is clear, but the implications are profound. We are not just the descendants of one species. We are the living embodiment of a story that began in Africa and continues to unfold across the globe. Imagine a single river, flowing from a distant land, carrying all the life it knows into a vast, uncharted sea. This river is our ancestors, carrying their genes, culture, and survival across the continents. At first, the river flows alone, through a single land, shaping the soil, nourishing the land, and building the foundations of life that will one day spread far and wide. These new rivers are not copies of the original. They carry the same water, the same essence, But they evolve, adapt, and grow in their own ways, just as our human story did. So, the river is not just a metaphor for migration. It's a metaphor for the journey of life itself, fluid, adaptable, and endlessly evolving, even as it remains rooted in its origin. In the end, we are all part of that river, connected, shaped, and carried forward by the same ancient currents that once carried our ancestors across the world. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. Imagine standing in a world where the sun barely rises, and the air is sharp with the scent of frost. You're not in a modern city or a remote village. You're in a place that once shaped the fate of humanity. This is not a place of comfort, but of survival. Here, the land itself is a living force, shaping the course of history in ways we only now begin to understand. Thousands of years ago, people followed these frozen trails, not out of choice, but necessity. They chased the cold, not to escape it, but to survive it. The Great Migration was not just about movement. It was about adaptation. These people learned to read the land, to follow the ice, to live in the shadow of the glaciers. This is the story of how humanity followed the ice, not as conquerors, but as travelers, shaped by the elements and driven by survival. The Great Migration isn't just about animals moving. It's about people, our ancestors, following ancient trails across continents, chasing survival, and shaping the world we know today. These migrations were driven by ice, by climate, by the need to find food, shelter, and safety. They weren't just journeys. They were acts of resilience, rewriting the map of human history. The trails they followed were not highways or roads. They were paths etched by the wind, shaped by the land, and remembered through stories passed down through generations. Each step they took carried weight of survival, of loss, of hope. These migrations weren't just about movement. They were about transformation. Understanding the Great Migration means understanding the roots of our own journey, how we came to be here, how we shaped the world, and how we continue to move forward. The Great Migration isn't just about animals. It's a mirror to our own journey. We too are chasing something: safety, opportunity, a better life. But we often forget how much of our history is shaped by movement. When we think of migration, we imagine the big animals, the herds, the predators. But we rarely consider the people who moved across continents, carrying stories, traditions, and knowledge across generations. The Ice Age trails didn't just guide animals. They carved the paths for human exploration, survival, and innovation. Every step taken by those ancient herds was a step closer to understanding our place in the world. Understanding the Great Migration is like uncovering a hidden chapter of our past. It reminds us that movement is not weakness. It's the essence of life, of adaptation, of progress. So why should you care? Because the same forces that shaped the migration of herds still shape our world today. Climate, survival, and the need to move forward are as old as humanity itself. The Great Migration didn't start with a single moment. It began as a slow, relentless push across vast landscapes, driven by survival in the shifting climate. For thousands of years, humans followed the ice, chasing game and shelter, their paths etched into the earth by footprints and memory. The migration wasn't just about survival. It was about adaptation, about finding new ways to live, to grow, to evolve with the world around them. And so, the Great Migration became more than a journey. It became a blueprint for humanity's future, written in the language of movement and survival. In every step taken, every trail followed, there was a story of resilience, of change, of the quiet, persistent force that shaped the course of human history. Imagine you're a baby animal, born in a snowy forest. Your world is cold, but there's food and safety. But when the snows come too early, you have to move. You follow the land where the grass grows and the rivers run. You walk and walk with your family. You don't know where you're going, but you follow the ice. The ice tells you where to go, like a map in the snow. You trust the ice because it's been there for a long time. Some animals stay behind when the ice leaves. They can't move as fast. But the ones who follow the ice, those are the ones who survive. The ice is their guide, their teacher, their home. The ice is more than just snow. It's a memory. It's a story. It's the reason we moved. It's why we're still here. We followed the ice, and now we follow its story too. The Great Migration didn't start with a single event, but with a gradual shift in the world around them. As the Ice Age waned, the glaciers retreated, and the climate began to change. These animals, born into a world of ice and snow, now found themselves in a new landscape, one that would test their endurance and reshape their future. The first step was survival. As the climate cooled, the great herds began to move, seeking cooler temperatures and the last remnants of their icy homeland. The snow-covered tundra became their new home, a place of extremes where the cold was more biting than the ice had ever been. The migration was not just about movement, but about adaptation. These animals had to change their behavior, their routes, and their timing. They learned to read the land, the weather, and the subtle cues of the natural world that signaled when it was safe to move. The first step was also about preparation. The herds would gather in certain areas, waiting for the right moment to begin their journey. This was a time of great uncertainty, but also of great purpose. They moved not for survival, but for the chance to find a new way of life. In the end, the Great Migration was a response to the world changing. The animals who survived were those who adapted, who followed the trails left by their ancestors, and who trusted that the ice had already led them to the right place. As the ice sheets retreated, the climate shifted. Herds began to follow the retreating cold, following the last traces of their ancestral homeland. They moved not just for food, but for the memories of a world that was disappearing. These migrations were not random. They followed ancient paths, guided by the remnants of glaciers, the rhythm of the seasons, and the whispers of the past. Every step was a return to something familiar, a way to survive the unknown. The animals carried more than their bodies. They carried the knowledge of their ancestors. They knew which rivers still had water, which plains still had grass, and which mountains still held the cold they needed. This was not just survival, it was continuity. The migration was a ritual, a cycle that ensured life could continue even as the world changed. The animals were not leaving the past behind. They were carrying it forward. And so, they moved, step by step, generation by generation. The Great Migration was not a single journey, but 1,000 journeys, each one shaped by the same deep, unspoken bond between animal and land. The third step is where the clever twist happens. The animals didn't just follow the ice, they followed the ice path through the land itself. This path wasn't just a line on the map. It was a living route, shaped by the movement of glaciers, the rhythm of the seasons, and the animals' own instincts. The ice acted as both barrier and bridge, forcing the animals to move, but also creating corridors through which they could pass safely. This was not a journey of chance. It was a journey of adaptation, a dance with the climate that shaped the survival of entire species. The clever twist was in the understanding that the ice was not just a backdrop. It was the map, the compass, and the reason they moved at all. Beneath the surface of history, the Great Migration is a story of climate and survival. The Ice Age didn't just shape the land. It shaped the rhythm of life, the paths of the herds, and the decisions of the people who followed them. Scientists use ancient climate data, ice cores, and sediment layers to map the movement of these great herds. Each layer tells a story of when the ice retreated, when the grasses grew, and when the animals followed. The tools they used, the way they hunted, the way they moved, were shaped by the environment. The Ice Age left behind a world of extremes, and the people who survived learned to read the land like a map of survival. Today, we look at the bones and the tracks, but the real science hums in the silence between the footsteps, in the echoes of a world that shaped humanity's path. The Great Migration was not just about movement. It was about adaptation, about finding home in a changing world. And in that journey, we find the roots of our own resilience. Imagine the Earth as a giant, frozen puzzle, and the people of the Ice Age as the pieces being forced to move by the cold. Each piece is driven by survival, not by choice, but by the need to follow the warmth and the signs of life that the ice has left behind. The migration isn't about speed or strength. It's about endurance and the will to keep moving, even when the world feels like it's closing in. This is not a story of conquest, but of quiet resilience, of people who refuse to be trapped by the world they were born into. In the end, the greatest migration was not of animals or empires, but of the human spirit, always searching, always adapting, always moving forward. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. Imagine a world where the only way to reach another land is through water or sand. These vast, shifting landscapes have shaped the paths of human history, often as barriers, sometimes as bridges. The ocean, with its endless blue and ever-changing moods, has both divided and connected people across time. It is a force of nature, yet one that humans have long sought to master. Deserts, too, are not just empty spaces. They are places of endurance, where survival is a daily battle against thirst, heat, and the absence of life. These natural landscapes have dictated who could move where and when. They have created borders, but also possibilities for new beginnings. In this video, we will explore how oceans and deserts have shaped the movement of people, sometimes as barriers, sometimes as catalysts for change. When we talk about movement, we're not just talking about roads or borders. We're talking about vast, unyielding landscapes that have shaped the course of human history. Oceans and deserts are not just physical barriers. They are forces of nature that have tested the will and resilience of those who dared to cross them. These landscapes are more than just obstacles. They are witnesses to the stories of migration, survival, and transformation. In every step taken across these barriers, there is a story of courage, loss, and hope. A story that has shaped the world we live in today. You might think these vast empty spaces are just obstacles, but they shape the very way we live, move, and connect. Every border, every migration, every trade route is written in the language of the land and sea. When we speak of borders, we're not just talking about lines on a map. We're talking about the physical and psychological walls that divide us. These landscapes are not neutral. They are active participants in the stories of our lives. These environments don't just affect where we go. They affect who we become. They mold our cultures, our languages, our ways of thinking. They are the silent witnesses to our journeys, both seen and unseen. Understanding the role of these landscapes is more than an academic exercise. It's about recognizing the forces that have shaped our world, and the ones that continue to shape it, even as we move forward into the unknown. From the first migrations out of Africa, oceans and deserts have been both gateways and graveyards. The earliest humans crossed vast deserts and treacherous seas, driven by survival, curiosity, and the need to find new horizons. The Sahara, the Arabian Desert, and the vast Pacific were not just barriers. They were landscapes of endurance. Travelers faced thirst, storms, and the ever-present risk of being lost in the endless expanse. The ocean, too, was a boundary between worlds. From Polynesia to the Americas, seafarers navigated by stars and currents, their journeys spanning thousands of miles and centuries of human history. In the medieval world, deserts and oceans remained formidable, The Silk Road and maritime routes were lifelines, but crossing them required courage, faith, and often the sacrifice of many lives. And yet, every step across these barriers was a testament to human will. The movement of people across oceans and deserts was not just about survival. It was about connection, identity, and the search for belonging in a world that often sought to divide. Imagine you're standing on the edge of a big blue ocean. You look out and see nothing but water, far and wide. It's like a wall that never ends. Now, picture a desert. It's hot and dry, and the sand moves like it's alive. But it's not just a place. It's a test. A place that separates those who stay from those who go. These places are not empty. They hold memories, stories, and the weight of those who have crossed them before. They are silent witnesses to the journey. So, when we think about why people move, we can't forget the oceans and deserts. They are not just obstacles. They are part of the reason people move at all. Before any journey begins, there is a place. A home, a land known by name and memory, where roots grow deep and the air carries the scent of belonging. This place is not just a location. It is a weight, story, a history. It is the first step in a movement that will test the limits of human endurance and resolve. The setup is not just about preparation. It is about surrender. Letting go of the past, even as the memory of it clings to the skin and soul. Every journey begins with a single step. This is where the silence of the land meets the weight of the heart, and the unknown becomes real. Once the decision is made, the journey begins. It's not just about moving from one place to another, but about navigating the physical and emotional landscape of a new world. Oceans and deserts are not passive barriers. They are dynamic forces that shape the path. They test the will, the endurance, and the resolve of those who dare to cross them. The human body is adapted to comfort, not to survival. The journey across these landscapes demands a break from the familiar, a redefinition of what it means to be human. Every step, every mile, is a reckoning with the self. The movement is not just physical. It is a process of shedding the past and embracing the unknown. And yet, it is in this movement that humanity finds its strength. To cross a barrier is to confront the limits of the world and to find a new way forward. The clever twist lies in how movement across these barriers is not just physical, but also ideological. It's the moment when the line between place and identity blurs, and the journey becomes a redefinition of self. Deserts and oceans are not just obstacles. They are mirrors. They reflect the inner struggles of those who cross them, revealing the depths of their purpose and the weight of their choices. When people move across these barriers, they are not just escaping or seeking. They are reconfiguring the world they leave behind and the world they hope to find. The barriers are not the end, but the beginning of a new understanding. This twist is the realization that movement is not just about crossing a line. It's about crossing a threshold. The barriers are not the obstacle, but the catalyst for transformation. Underneath it all, the science is simple. Movement follows the path of least resistance. Oceans and deserts are not just barriers. They are landscapes shaped by forces older than human history. The ocean, vast and unyielding, obeys the pull of gravity and the rhythm of the moon. Its currents and tides are not random, but part of a system that has carried life across continents for millennia. Deserts, too, are not empty. They are shaped by wind, by heat, by the slow accumulation of time. They are places where the earth remembers every step taken, every life that has passed through. Oceans and deserts are not obstacles, but gateways. Natural, indifferent, and ever-shifting. They have dictated the flow of human history as surely as the stars dictate the tides. The science here is not cold, but it is unyielding. It does not care for borders, nor for the stories we write. It only knows the weight of water and the reach of wind. Imagine a world where the only way to move forward is through a wall of glass. You can see the path, but you can't touch it. You try to walk through it, but it bends and shifts, never letting you cross. This glass wall is not a metaphor. It's a mirror of what oceans and deserts have been for humanity. Boundaries that shape us, define us, and sometimes trap us in the reflection of who we were. Oceans and deserts are not just obstacles. They are the silent custodians of our journeys, shaping the stories we carry, the choices we make, and the paths we are willing to walk. To cross these barriers is to test the limits of human endurance, to confront the unknown, and to find meaning in the vastness that surrounds us. And so, like the glass wall, these landscapes are both a barrier and a mirror. They reflect our deepest fears and our greatest potential. They are the space between where we are and where we might be. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. We are all made of stories, some whispered, some shouted, but all shaped by movement. From the first step out of the cave to the last mile across the sea, migration has always been the heartbeat of civilization. Imagine the first travelers, those who dared to leave the familiar, carrying with them not just belongings, but the weight of memory and the spark of possibility. These journeys were never just about survival. They were about connection, about building something new from what was left behind. Migration is the thread that weaves through time, binding generations, cultures, and ideas into the fabric of what we call civilization. In this series, we will explore how movement has not only shaped the world, but how it continues to define who we are, where we come from, and where we are going. We're talking about the quiet, relentless tide of people moving across the globe, shaping what we call civilization. It's not just about where we come from, but how we carry our stories forward, generation after generation. Migration has always been a form of survival, a search for better land, better life, or just a chance to survive. It's the pulse of human history, beating under the surface of every great civilization. When we talk about migration, we're not just talking about borders or geography. We're talking about culture, language, and the invisible threads that connect us across time and space. Migration has left its mark on every corner of the world, from the oldest cities to the newest settlements. It's the reason we have so many shared traditions, and so many unique ones too. So when we look back at history, we see that the most enduring civilizations are not built by staying in one place. They're built by moving, adapting, and carrying forward the stories of those who came before. You think your ancestors were born in the place you call home? That's a story you've been told, not one you've lived. Every language, every belief, every recipe you know is a thread pulled from a distant land. The bread you eat, the way you greet a friend, even the way you sleep, these are not accidents. They are the echoes of people who moved, who left, who built, and who were never truly at home. History is not written by those who stay behind. It's written by those who dared to leave, who carried their lives across oceans and deserts, and who refused to forget where they came from. You are not just a citizen of a country. You are a descendant of countless journeys. Every time you speak your language, you are continuing a conversation that began in a distant place and was passed down through struggle, survival, and memory. To understand your world, you must understand the people who came before you. Their migration is your history, and your history is the story of movement. It's not just about where you came from. It's about where you're going. The first great migrations were not driven by choice, but by necessity. Droughts, wars, and environmental collapse forced entire populations to move, carrying with them knowledge, tools, and the seeds of new civilizations. From Mesopotamia to the Indus Valley, movement was the engine of innovation. People brought ideas across vast distances, blending traditions and sparking breakthroughs that would shape the course of human history. The Silk Road was not just a trade route, but a living artery of cultural exchange. Ideas, religions, and technologies flowed along its paths, creating a shared heritage that transcended borders. Every great civilization was built on the backs of migrants. Whether they were fleeing persecution, seeking opportunity, or simply following the stars, their journeys left an indelible mark on the world. In the end, migration is not a disruption. It is the pulse of civilization. It is through movement that we grow, adapt, and remember who we are as a species. Imagine a world where people never moved. No one left their home, no one traveled. But that world never happened. Every great story started with someone taking a step away from everything they knew. When people moved, they brought their ideas, their tools, and their dreams. They built new places, shared their ways, and made the world bigger than any one person could ever imagine. Migration wasn't just about leaving home. It was about finding new homes. And in those new homes, people created the very things that made civilization possible: language, art, science, and the first cities. Even today, when we travel, we carry the same spirit. We bring our stories, our hopes, and our questions. We are all part of that long, unbroken journey of people moving forward. So when you look around you, remember that everything you see, every building, every language, every idea, was once carried by someone who left their home and walked towards something new. Before any journey begins, there must be a reason. A call to move, to seek, to survive. The land is no longer enough, and the heart must find new ground. In ancient times, this call came from famine, war, or the promise of a better life. People left behind homes built by their ancestors, carrying with them stories, tools, and the weight of generations. This first step is not just physical. It is a reckoning with the unknown. The path ahead is uncertain, but the step itself is a declaration. I am ready to change, to grow, to belong somewhere else. The setup is the moment of decision. It is where the past is left behind and the future is embraced. It is the beginning of a journey that will shape the course of history. When people move, they bring more than just bodies. They carry ideas, tools, and traditions. These are the seeds of transformation, planted in new soil by hands that have known other lands. Each step across the land is a quiet revolution. The old ways are not erased, but they are reshaped by the presence of new people, new voices, and new ways of looking at the world. The mechanism of migration is not just movement. It is the merging of cultures, the blending of languages, and the slow, inevitable evolution of identity through contact and coexistence. This is how civilizations grow, not through isolation, but through the slow, deliberate act of people moving, learning, and building upon what came before. Migration is not a disruption. It is the heartbeat of progress. It is the quiet force that turns fragments of history into the foundation of the future. The clever twist lies in the paradox of displacement and purpose. Migration is not just movement. It is a choice made in the face of necessity, shaped by both survival and aspiration. The ancient world understood this. People did not simply leave home. They carried with them stories, skills, and the weight of their past, forging new paths with each step. This movement was not random. It followed the rhythm of the land, the flow of rivers, and the pull of trade routes, all of which were mapped in the minds of those who dared to cross borders. Migration became the invisible thread that wove civilizations together, binding distant lands through shared labor, language, and the shared burden of survival. In this way, movement became more than a necessity. It became the origin of culture, the spark that lit the flame of human progress. Beneath the movement of people, there is a science of survival, genes, tools, and the rhythms of the earth. Our ancestors didn't just travel, they adapted, and in adapting, they left an indelible mark on the planet. The human genome carries the story of migration, a map of where we've been and how we've endured. Every mutation, every adaptation, is a silent testament to the journey. The science of migration is not just about the body. It's about the mind, the knowledge passed from one generation to the next, encoded in stories, symbols, and the very structure of language. In every migration, there is a quiet science of resilience, of learning, of forgetting, of remembering. It is in this hum that civilizations are born, and in this hum, they continue. Imagine a river that never stops flowing, carving canyons and feeding cities, yet no one owns it. That river is migration, the silent force that shaped every civilization. Just as the river nourishes the land, so too did migration bring life to human societies, shaping their cultures, economies, and ideas. The river doesn't care about borders. It simply flows. Likewise, migration defies boundaries, connecting people across time and space. So let us not see migration as a problem, but as a force of nature. Vast, unstoppable, and ultimately essential to the story of human civilization. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end.